You are not imprisoned by iron bars. You are imprisoned by what other people think of you. From a young age, you learned a quiet rule. Approval means safety. If they like you, you belong. If they judge you, you shrink. So without noticing, you began editing yourself to survive. You choose words more carefully than truth. You hesitate before acting. You delay the life you want, waiting for permission that never comes. This is not a weakness. It is conditioning. For thousands of years, Stoic philosophers saw this invisible prison clearly. They understood that most human suffering does not come from events, but from the fear of how we will be seen when we act. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Yet most people hand that power away daily, trading inner freedom for external approval. Today is not about rebellion, it is about release. Because the day you stop caring what people think is the day you stop living as a shadow and begin moving through the world with unshakable force. Chapter 1. The Silent Tyrant. Other People's Opinions. There is a ruler most people never see, yet obey every day. It does not shout, it does not threaten, it simply watches. This silent tyrant is other people's opinions. From the moment you wake up, it begins to whisper. What will they think if you say this? How will you look if you fail? Will they approve or will they judge? Slowly, almost invisibly, this fear starts directing your life. You dress not to express who you are, but to avoid standing out. You speak not what is true, but what is acceptable. You choose careers, relationships, even beliefs, not because they feel right, but because they look right. This is how control works best, not through force, but through internal permission. As Epictetus warned centuries ago, we are disturbed not by things, but by our opinions about them. Notice what this means. It is not their words that bind you. It is your belief that their judgment has authority. Society reinforces this from childhood. Good behavior is rewarded with praise. Questioning is met with disapproval. Soon, love feels conditional, and self-worth becomes something to be earned rather than owned. So you learn to perform, you learn to please, and eventually, you forget the difference between who you are and who you present. The tragedy is not that people judge you. The tragedy is that you begin judging yourself through their eyes. Once that happens, the tyrant no longer needs to speak. You censor yourself before the world ever does. You hesitate when opportunity appears. You abandon ideas before they take form. You betray your own instincts to maintain comfort and acceptance. Stoicism exposes this illusion without cruelty. It reminds you that opinions live outside your control, and anything outside your control cannot be the foundation of your life. The moment you recognize other people's opinions as noise rather than commands, the tyrant weakens. Not because the world becomes kinder, but because you stop kneeling to it. Freedom begins the instant you withdraw obedience from an unqualified ruler. Chapter 2. Why caring too much makes you weak. The moment you need approval, you give away leverage. Needing to be liked turns strength into negotiation. When your peace depends on how others respond, you no longer act from conviction. You act from calculation. Every decision becomes filtered through a dangerous question: will this cost me approval? This is where weakness begins. People who crave acceptance hesitate longer than necessary. They soften their words, they tolerate what should be confronted. Not because they lack intelligence or courage, but because rejection feels like a threat to survival. The need to be liked creates a silent dependency, and dependency is always exploitable. Those who sense this hunger, consciously or not, gain power over you. They can withhold praise to control behavior. They can offer approval conditionally, pulling you closer while keeping you small. Manipulation does not require cruelty, only awareness of your need. Stoic philosophy was brutally honest about this danger. As Seneca observed, a person who lives for applause becomes a servant to the crowd. The more you depend on validation, the more fragile you become. Caring too much also breeds fear of failure. When mistakes threaten your image, you stop taking necessary risks. You choose safety over growth. You remain competent, but never exceptional. This is why people who seek constant approval often appear agreeable but feel internally exhausted. They are always monitoring reactions, always adjusting, always defending an image instead of building a life. Stoicism draws a hard line here. Anything that can be taken away by someone else cannot be your source of strength. Praise fades. Criticism arrives without warning. Both are unstable currencies. The Stoic alternative is not arrogance or indifference. It is independence. When you no longer need people to approve of you, you regain clarity. Your words sharpen, your actions align. You stop negotiating your values to purchase comfort. Weakness is not caring what others think. Weakness is needing it. And the day you stop needing approval is the day others lose the ability to steer your life. Chapter 3. The Stoic definition of true freedom. Most people misunderstand freedom. They think freedom means doing whatever they want, whenever they want. Stoicism calls this another illusion. True freedom is not the absence of limits. True freedom is the absence of inner captivity. A Stoic does not ask, "Can I do this?" He asks, "Can this control me?" Here is the core truth Stoics lived by. No one can harm you unless you grant them access to your inner world. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. This is not poetry. It is a practical rule for living. Other people's opinions exist outside your control. You cannot command praise. You cannot prevent criticism. You cannot manage misunderstanding. So placing your happiness there is like building a home on shifting sand. Stoic freedom begins the moment you relocate your sense of worth, not into success, not into reputation, but into judgment, choice, and character. If someone insults you, the words themselves carry no force. The damage only appears when you agree with them. If someone praises you, the pleasure fades the moment you rely on it to feel whole. This is why Stoics train themselves to pause before reacting. Between stimulus and response, there is a narrow space. Inside that space lives freedom. In that moment, you decide, do I internalize this, or do I observe it and let it pass? Freedom is not being untouched by the world. Freedom is being untouched by the opinions of the world. When you stop needing validation, you stop fearing rejection. When you stop fearing rejection, you stop censoring yourself. And when you stop censoring yourself, your life begins to move forward with clarity. Stoics did not seek to harden themselves emotionally. They sought to anchor themselves internally. Because once your peace depends only on what you control, no crowd can shake you, no judgment can imprison you, and no opinion can decide who you are. That is Stoic freedom. Chapter 4. The day you stop caring. A psychological shift. There is a quiet moment when something inside you changes. Nothing dramatic happens on the outside, but internally, a switch flips. This is the day you stop caring what people think. At first, it feels unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable, because for years, your mind was trained to scan for approval before moving. When that habit loosens, your thoughts become clearer. You speak with less hesitation, not because you want to provoke, but because you are no longer filtering truth through fear. Your words gain weight, not volume. You begin choosing paths that feel right rather than popular. Decisions come faster, not impulsively, but decisively. The fear of being disliked loses its grip. You realize something subtle but powerful. Being misunderstood is survivable. Being disliked is not fatal. Being judged does not destroy you. What once felt like danger now feels like background noise. This shift does not make you reckless. It makes you honest. You stop performing versions of yourself designed to fit every room. You stop shrinking to maintain harmony. You stop asking for permission to exist as you are. Psychologically, this is a return to self-authorship. Your identity moves from external reference points to internal ones. Instead of asking, "How am I being perceived?" you ask, "Am I acting in alignment with my values?" That question changes everything. When you live this way, rejection loses its sting. Not because you no longer feel it, but because it no longer defines you. Approval becomes pleasant, not necessary. Criticism becomes information, not a verdict. This is the moment you stop living as a reflection of the crowd. You step out of comparison. You step out of constant self-surveillance, and for the first time, you experience a rare form of peace. Not the peace of comfort, but the peace of integrity. You are no longer split between who you are and who you pretend to be. There is no performance to maintain, no image to defend. From this point forward, your life begins to feel lighter, yet stronger. Not because people changed, but because their opinions no longer sit at the center of your decisions. This is where individuality begins. And this is where real strength quietly takes root. Chapter 5. How Stoics Trained Their Minds. Against judgment, Stoics did not wait for confidence to appear. They trained for judgment the way warriors train for battle. Calm under criticism was not a personality trait. It was a skill. The first practice was premeditatio malorum. Before acting, they imagined disapproval clearly and deliberately. They pictured rejection, mockery, misunderstanding. Not to become pessimistic, but to remove surprise. When you expect criticism, it loses its power. What is anticipated cannot shock you, and what cannot shock you cannot control you. The second practice was voluntary discomfort. Stoics intentionally lived simply, even when comfort was available. They wore plain clothes. They ate modest meals. They removed dependence on luxury and attention. Why? Because when you prove to yourself that you do not need approval, comfort, or admiration, fear collapses. If you can stand without applause, you cannot be intimidated by silence. As Seneca practiced, reducing dependence strengthens the mind. The less you require from the outside, the freer you become on the inside. The third discipline was the view from above. Stoics regularly zoomed out mentally. They imagined their life from years ahead, then from a city, then from the planet. Seen from that height, today's criticism becomes microscopic. A careless comment, a fleeting opinion, a noise that disappears with time. Ask yourself, will this matter in a year, in 5 years, when you are at the end of your life? Almost always, the answer is no. These practices rewired perspective. They trained Stoics to anchor their identity internally, not socially. Judgment still came, opinions still existed, but they no longer dictated behavior. What matters is consistency, not intensity. You do not master this in a day, you build it through repetition. Expect judgment, choose simplicity, zoom out daily. Over time, something remarkable happens. Your nervous system stops reacting to every look, comment, or silence. You move through the world with quiet steadiness. Not hardened, not cold, but free. Because when judgment arrives and finds no fear waiting for it, it leaves with nothing accomplished. Chapter 6. The Hidden Truth. Most people aren't thinking about you. Here is a truth that feels uncomfortable at first, then deeply liberating. Most people are not thinking about you, not your mistakes, not your appearance, not that awkward thing you said years ago. Nearly all of their mental energy is consumed by one subject: themselves, their worries, their insecurities, their reputation, their future. When you realize this, a heavy burden begins to lift. The fear of judgment assumes an audience that rarely exists. You imagine a crowd watching, evaluating, remembering. In reality, there is mostly noise, distraction, and self-absorption. This is not an insult to others, it is simply human nature. People are too busy managing their own inner chaos to keep a detailed record of yours. The comment you replay for weeks was forgotten by them within minutes. The flaw you magnify feels invisible to everyone else. And this is good news, because it means you have been living under surveillance that was never real. Stoicism teaches that much of our anxiety comes from false assumptions. One of the most damaging is the belief that we are constantly being evaluated. This belief keeps you cautious. It keeps you small. It keeps you delaying action until conditions feel safe. But safety was never the goal. Clarity was. When you understand that you are not the center of other people's attention, you regain freedom of movement. You take chances more easily. You speak without rehearsing every sentence. You stop trying to control impressions that were never under your control. Ironically, this is when respect tends to appear. Not because you chase it, but because you are no longer performing for it. Detachment is not apathy. It is perspective. You stop interpreting neutral reactions as rejection. You stop personalizing silence. You stop assuming hostility where none exists. And even when judgment does come, it arrives briefly and imperfectly. It passes through minds already crowded with concerns. Understanding this shifts your posture. You stand straighter, you move faster, you hesitate less. Not because you believe you are superior, but because you understand something most people never do. You are never under the spotlight. You are only imagining it. Once that illusion dissolves, what remains is space. Space to act. Space to grow. Space to live without constant self-monitoring. And in that space, real freedom begins to breathe. Chapter 7. What happens when you truly stop caring? When you truly stop caring what people think, something unexpected happens. Your life accelerates. You no longer spend hours overthinking decisions that should take minutes. You act while others are still weighing opinions. Momentum replaces hesitation. Your actions become cleaner, not rushed, not reckless, but free from unnecessary doubt. You trust your judgment because it is no longer crowded with imagined voices. Decisions feel simpler because they are no longer social negotiations. You are not asking, how will this look? You're asking, is this right? This shift produces a quiet form of confidence, not the loud kind that seeks attention, but the grounded kind that does not require validation. You stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. You stop justifying every choice. You stop proving your worth to rooms that were never qualified to measure it. As a result, your presence changes. You listen more carefully. You speak more precisely. You walk away sooner from situations that drain your energy. People notice this, even if they cannot explain it. There is something different about someone who does not need approval. They are harder to influence, harder to rush, harder to intimidate. You become dangerous in a peaceful way. This is because power no longer leaks outward. It stays contained, focused. You do not react immediately to praise or criticism. You evaluate. You choose. Over time, this creates a reputation you never chased. People sense boundaries without seeing them drawn. They feel resistance without confrontation. And the most important change happens internally. You feel lighter, not because life becomes easier, but because you are no longer carrying the weight of other people's expectations. There is no longer a split between your inner values and outer behavior. No performance, no mask. You act, and then you move on. You no longer need to be seen as impressive. You no longer fear being misunderstood. You no longer measure yourself against shifting opinions. This is why Stoics valued inner independence above all else. Because once you are free from the need to be liked, no one can slow you down with judgment, no one can control you with approval, and no one can shake you with rejection. You do not announce this strength, you do not advertise it, you simply love it. And in that quiet alignment, you become someone others feel rather than debate. Unmoved, unneeded, unstoppable. Chapter 8. The Stoic Code. What you should care about instead. When you stop caring about what people think, a question naturally follows. If not their opinions, then what should matter? Stoicism answers this with ruthless clarity. Do not care about being liked. Care about being aligned. Do not care about applause. Care about character. Do not care about reputation. Care about self-command. Stoics understood that attention is limited. Whatever you give it to will shape you. So they chose carefully. Instead of monitoring other people's reactions, they monitored their own conduct. Instead of chasing approval, they chased consistency. Instead of asking how they appeared, they asked whether they acted rightly. This is the Stoic Code. You measure yourself by one standard only. Did I act according to my values today? Not perfectly, not flawlessly, but honestly. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. This was not moral posturing, it was discipline. When you live this way, external noise loses relevance, praise becomes optional, criticism becomes secondary. What matters is whether you kept your word, whether you acted with courage when it was uncomfortable, whether you restrained yourself when ego demanded expression. Stoicism does not promise comfort, it promises clarity, and clarity is stabilizing. When you know what you stand for, you do not scan the room for signals, you carry your compass with you. Decisions become lighter because they are guided internally. This is not isolation, it is sovereignty. You still care about others, but not at the expense of yourself. You still listen, but you do not surrender judgment. You still adapt, but you do not abandon principle. The Stoic Code replaces social anxiety with inner order. It replaces comparison with self-respect. It replaces fear with responsibility. And responsibility is empowering. Because when you are accountable to your own standards, no crowd can crown you, and no crowd can dethrone you. You are no longer trying to be impressive. You're trying to be true. And truth, lived consistently, creates a kind of strength that does not fluctuate with opinion. It holds, quietly. Chapter 9. How to practice this in daily life. Understanding. Stoic principles is not enough. Freedom is built through daily application, not insight alone. Each time judgment appears, pause and ask a single question. Is this within my control? If someone criticizes you, their words are not. Your response is, your interpretation is, your behavior afterward is. This question creates space between stimulus and reaction. And in that space, you reclaim authority. When you feel the urge to explain yourself, stop. Ask whether clarity is needed or approval is being sought. Often, silence is the stronger answer. When anxiety about others' opinions rises, shift the focus inward. Ask, am I acting according to my values right now? If the answer is yes, allow discomfort to exist without interference. If the answer is no, correct the behavior quietly. Stoicism is not about emotional suppression, it is about emotional ownership. A powerful daily practice is Stoic journaling. Each evening, write one honest reflection. Who controlled my emotions today? Was it a colleague's tone, a stranger's comment, a lack of recognition? Do not judge yourself for the answer. Observe it. This practice builds awareness, and awareness builds choice. Another discipline is intentional exposure. Do small things that risk mild disapproval. Share an honest opinion. Decline an invitation without over-explaining. Choose simplicity when display is expected. Each time you survive discomfort, your nervous system learns a new lesson. Judgment is not dangerous. Over time, your reactions soften. You stop bracing for impact. You stop rehearsing conversations that never happen. Life becomes more direct. You act, you observe, you adjust. Not everything requires a response. Not every opinion deserves entry. This is how Stoic strength becomes practical, not through dramatic change, but through repetition. Day by day, you stop outsourcing your peace. Day by day, you reclaim authorship of your behavior. Day by day, you weaken the old habit of self-surveillance. Eventually, something remarkable occurs. Judgment still appears, but it no longer stays. It passes through without settling. And what remains is steadiness, not indifference, not numbness, but a calm confidence rooted in self-command. That is how Stoicism leaves philosophy and enters your life. Chapter 10. Become untouchable. There is a point where freedom becomes visible. Not announced, not explained, but felt. This is where you become untouchable. The person who no longer needs to be liked cannot be manipulated. Approval no longer buys obedience. Disapproval no longer creates fear. When you stop chasing acceptance, others lose leverage over you. Their praise cannot inflate you. Their criticism cannot shrink you. You move independently, anchored to something they cannot access. This is why Stoics were so difficult to control. They did not resist loudly. They did not rebel emotionally. They simply refused to place their peace in someone else's hands. A person who is not afraid of being disliked cannot be coerced. A person who is not desperate for validation cannot be steered. A person who does not fear judgment cannot be intimidated. This does not make you cold. It makes you clear. You stop reacting for effect. You stop defending an image. You stop explaining yourself to those who are not seeking understanding. Your strength becomes quiet, contained, unprovoked. As Marcus Aurelius lived, Stoics did not seek to stand out. They sought to stand firm. When you are untouchable, you still feel emotion. But emotion no longer governs action. You choose when to engage and when to walk away. You become selective with energy, careful with words, decisive with time. People sense this shift, not because you demand respect, but because you no longer chase it. Boundaries appear without being spoken. And here is the final truth. Untouchable does not mean invincible. It means independent. Independent applause. Independent of rejection. Independent of the constant need to be seen. You no longer live for the crowd. You live by principle. And when you reach this state, something profound happens. Life stops feeling like a performance. Decisions stop feeling heavy. Your mind stops negotiating with fear. You move forward quietly, deliberately, unshaken. Not because the world changed, but because its opinions no longer decide who you are. That is Stoic strength. And once it is built, it cannot be taken from you. Today, we traced the invisible prison that quietly controls so many lives. Not walls, not circumstances, but the fear of what others might think. You saw how caring too much about approval weakens judgment, delays action, and hands your inner power to the crowd. You learned the Stoic truth. Freedom does not come from changing the world, but from reclaiming authority over your own mind. As the Stoics taught, especially Marcus Aurelius, peace begins when you stop placing your worth in things you cannot control. Opinions rise and fall, judgment appears and disappears, but character, once strengthened, remains. This philosophy is not meant to stay abstract, it is meant to be practiced. So start small. Pause before reacting. Question whether approval is guiding your choices. Write each night about where you gave your power away and where you kept it. Do not aim to be fearless overnight. Aim to be honest daily. The day you stop caring what people think is not a dramatic rebellion. It is a quiet return to yourself, a decision to live by values rather than validation. If this message resonated with you, thank you for spending this time here. Your attention matters, and your discipline matters even more. Continue training your mind. Continue choosing clarity over noise. And remember, strength does not announce itself. It is built in silence. I'll see you in the next video.